Hello, my name is Matthew Deutsch, and I'm a professional business plan writer. And today I'm going to talk about developing a business plan specific for a software as a service company. Unlike other types of businesses that are a little bit more straightforward, like a restaurant or a cafe, a software as a service business has a substantial amount of complexity. Most importantly, it's a heavy focus should be placed on determining the burn rate as you develop the business. And I'm sure if you've done your own research, or if you're already working on a business plan specific for this type of business, one of the things you'll come across quite frequently is a burn rate analysis. And this is primarily because it takes a significant amount of time to build up enough of a user base where the recurring income is fully supporting the underlying operations of the business. In any business plan that I write specific for a software as a service business, I always focus very heavily on this matter and ensuring that there's enough runway so that the business can ultimately achieve profitability. Unlike other businesses or software businesses, where if you were selling the license up front, you have a much greater inflow of revenue. But with a software as a service business, you're generating that income on a monthly basis, on a per user basis. With that being said, this video is going to focus on just sort of the approach that I would take in writing a business plan specific for these types of companies. And there is a full sample underneath. If you click on the link below, that'll take you to a software as a service sample. If you go through the website, there's also a PDF of it, which is a little bit more clear. For some reason, it'll look much better in the PDF if you want to take a look. But again, browse the site at your convenience. I always start with the executive summary. Even though I write this chapter last, this is part and parcel of any business plan, is to start with the executive summary, which I always take the approach of having it as sort of a roadmap for the rest of the business. This provides the reader with a quick introduction of each section and just hones in on the most important points. The second section is what I always call the financing. Here's where we discuss things like the burn rate, the total amount of capital needed. I always include a pro forma valuation, as well as discussing exit strategies. With any software as a service business, these businesses are highly lucrative once they reach profitability, mainly because there is that recurring revenue. Throughout the entirety of the plan, that's something that should be focused on in any plan that I write for a SaaS. I always constantly am mentioning the recurring income, how it will support operations, and how it ultimately increases the valuation substantially. Chapter 3 is an overview of the technology and the operations. One of the things I find is a common mistake, especially when people have started their own SaaS business plan and then come to us and sort of want to refine it and improve it, is that there's far too much information regarding the technology stack. You have to remember that most readers are not going to have nearly the same level of technical competency that you do. So mentioning things like React, and Node and all the different technology suites that are going to be used, while important, you don't need to go into huge detail on that. Most importantly, you want to showcase the service that's being rendered, why people are going to be using your software as a service technology, and ultimately pricing as well. Chapter 4 in any plan that I write always just covers sort of the pedigree of the business. I call it overview of the organization, the type of corporate entity is used, mission statement, vision statement, objectives, and also any sort of the biographies of the founders in this section. Chapter 5 is the market and industry analysis. I segment this into 4 different sections. The first section being the economic analysis, discussing the economy, current rates of inflation, GDP growth, consumer spending growth, business investment, and then how that any changes in this can impact my client's software as a service business. Right under that, I discuss the industry, not only for software as a service as a whole, but also if you're targeting a specific industry. So an example would be if this is a healthcare specific industry, not only am I going to discuss that aspect, the SaaS, but also going to go do a deep dive into how this can be used in healthcare. So that's sort of that split for the industry analysis, which is somewhat unique to a software as a service, because you're not only looking at the industry as a whole, but also what your clients are up to. Under that is the demographic analysis. Here, just an overview of the types of companies or individuals that would be using the software as a service platform, revenue or income if it's more individually based, and how many potential customers there are within either domestically and internationally. Under that is the competitive analysis. And here I outline any company that's operating within a similar capacity. And not only that, but also discussing the ways that my client's business is different than any competitor in the market, even if they're a much larger competitor. Chapter 6 is an overview of how the business will grow, certainly reinvestment into things like search engine optimization, social media marketing, working with potential social media influencers if that's applicable to what you're doing, as well as conducting direct outreach initiatives, especially if this for a B2B focused enterprise. Chapter 7 is the marketing plan. I consider this to be one of the most important sections of the business plan outside of the financials, mainly because if people don't know that you're in operation, you're not going to get any clients. Here again, I focus very heavily on online-based marketing strategies, listing the number of platforms that would be used to promote the business, and again, standard search engine optimization, social media marketing, pay-per-click marketing, and most importantly, to create a budget that showcases for each different channel, rather than just saying, here's the X number of dollars that go to marketing. How is that going to be further segmented, and what are the key performance indicators specific for each marketing and advertising channel? Chapter 8 is the personnel plan. This includes the salaries for senior management, developers, operational staff, marketing staff. Their payroll and headcount is always fully included in that table. And then we move on to chapter 9, which is the financial plan. This is one of the most important sections of the plan. In fact, it's the actual most important section of the plan, mainly because any type of funding source that you have is going to want to see what your anticipated financials are. For a software as a service company, I break this down into multiple components. One showing revenue, especially if you're going to have multiple tiers of access, how many individual users or licenses are going to be issued for that specific level of service, whether there are any add-ons or one-time fees, or if you're offering any sort of a larger one-time fee for lifetime access to the technology. That's also included in the revenue forecast table. From there, it's the standard profit and loss. Again, revenue, expenses, and EBITDA in regards to things like cost of revenue, if you're issuing any commissions, the cost of processing payments for people that are using credit or debit cards to use the service. Operating expenses include marketing, payroll, facility costs, general administrative, business development, as well as research and development for any software related enterprise. From there, there's a common size income statement, which is a measure of the percentage of each segment of cost as a function of revenue. From there is the cash flow analysis. This is where things can get a little more complicated, because even though the cash flow analysis looks like a profit and loss statement, it's substantially different. Here you're just plotting the actual physical cash that's going to be used, and especially for a software as a service business, showing the burn rate prior to launch and after launch in order to onboard enough clients to reach that break-even point is thoroughly discussed in this section. Balance sheet is pretty straightforward. Assets, liabilities, equity. For a software as a service company, you're going to have costs related to intangible asset development, your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, your cash. Liabilities, if you're taking on a working capital line of credit or business loan, that would be shown in the liabilities section. From there, I do the break-even analysis and business ratios. In regards to break-even, this discusses how many clients need to be onboarded in order for the business to reach that middle state of not generating profit, but also not taking a loss. And that should be done over a 5-year period, especially for a SaaS-related enterprise. And that's sort of the heart and soul of the business plan. When I write one, I also include 5 other appendices. One is the SWOT analysis, discussing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The risk analysis, I go into a deep dive into the risks and risk mitigation strategies. The chapter after that is just the citations where I got information. And then the final 2 chapters are the expanded profit and loss statements. For the first year, I always do it monthly, then quarterly for years 2 through 5. For the cash flow analysis, that's done monthly for the first year and quarterly for years 2 through 5. In some instances, some funding sources specifically for a SaaS want to see a monthly financial model. And if you are struggling with your business plan, if that's something that you need help on, that's certainly something we can do. And that's essentially it. That's the approach that I would take when writing a SaaS business plan. Again, there's a sample underneath. Feel free to take a look at that and navigate through the rest of the site, so that way you can sort of see the properly formatted PDF of it as well. In closing, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime, either in the comment box or visiting our site and visiting the Contact Us form. We've been in business for 20 years. My background is both in economics and computer science, so I'm familiar with these businesses on a very intimate basis, especially when writing one so that any reader can understand what you're doing without necessarily having an expansive amount of technical expertise. I always try to balance the technical with the economic, and almost always focusing again very heavily on why this will be profitable and how long it'll take to achieve profitability. With that being said, thank you very much for taking a look. Take care.